Hello again and welcome to Spotlight. I'm Al Grinov, and today we'll be talking about a polar expedition called Arctic 2007. In the summer of 2007, Russia performed the first ever crewed descent to the ocean bottom at the North Pole. It was a great scientific success and raised great political controversy. Was it a political or a scientific move by the Russians? The man to answer the question and tell us more about the expedition is Swedish businessman who funded the exploit and was on board one of the two bathyscaphs which reached the seabed below the polar ice, Mr. Fredrik Paulsen.
An honorary doctor of Moscow State University of International Relations and an honorary pole explorer of Russia, Fredrik Paulsen, recently took part in an expedition where people went to the bottom of the Arctic Ocean for the first time in history. Mr. Paulsen was on board of the Mir 2 deep submergence vessel when it reached the record 4,300 meters deep. His lucky head was with him on board. Along with his interest in pole exploration, Northern European art, ethnography and medicine, Mr. Paulsen is also well known for his charitable work. He has dedicated most of his career to the Ferring Pharmaceuticals Group, which was founded by his father in 1950. Before joining the group, Mr. Paulsen studied chemistry at the Christian Albrechts University in Germany and business administration at the University of London, Sweden. He was awarded the Cross of the Order of Chivalry by Queen Margaret II of Denmark.
Hello, Mr. Paulsen, and welcome to the show. Thank you. Thank you very much for being with us.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, you are a director of a huge pharmaceutical corporation, well, what would interest many people is how come you have such an interest in scientific exploration of the Arctic? Is there something that dragged you to this area, to this subject?
In general, science is something which is very close to my heart. The business I have was built on science. My father was a scientist. He developed our products based on science around endocrinology. I think it's not such a far step to look into the science exploration being done in the polar regions. And the common theme is that we're trying to expand the knowledge, that we're trying to sort of shed light in the dark corners of the place where we have no knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Another general question, well, you're a Swede and your business is mainly in Sweden, but you have lots of friends in Russia, and including Mr. Chilengarov, the head of this expedition. You also have a lot of activities in Russia. How come you created this passion for Russia?
Well, it actually was quite accidental. I've been doing polar expeditions for over 15 years, and sooner or later, if you work in this field, you come across Russian expertise, Russian equipment, Russian know-how, and we came to rely more and more on these Russian help to perform our expeditions, and that's why I came to pass through Russia 2, 3, 4 times a year, and I became fascinated by this country. I think it has an enormous potential, and I'm really grateful that I'm able to contribute the little I do.
But as far as I can understand from your profile and from what we just heard, like part of your activities, you're not making money in Russia.
That's true.
You're mostly spending money in Russia. Yes. Tell us a little bit more about the various activities, the foundations you run, like things you sponsored here.
Well, I think Russia has basically one big problem. Everybody is obvious that there are, like in other countries, there are economical issues, there are political issues, but that's not really a problem in the real sense. I see the greatest challenge for Russia in the future as demographic. Mm-hmm. And I'm through one of my foundations. I'm trying to assist in solving this problem by funding fertility clinics. We have already, hopefully we'll have the first clinic up and running in Bryansk in the beginning of next year, and then we'll take another Russian city, and then we'll try to do every second year one more clinic in a Russian city.
Well,
This is purely philanthropic. It's not money. We set up the clinics and then we give them away.
Well, President Putin has also seemed to be obsessed, especially during the last couple of years, with the demographic problems of Russia, and he made it like center of his recent address to the nation. But people, when talking about the demographic problem, people mainly say about the economic factors that don't allow people to have more than one or two children. And you come from the medical aspect. Do you think that the medical aspect is as important that the Russians, the more fertile they are, the more children they will have?
Well, it's not just Russia that has this problem. Almost most countries in the world, the population is going back or stagnating. And there's something that's probably happened in the environment that makes it more difficult for women to have children. In certain European countries, it's up to 12% of the children born are being born by IVF. And there's, of course, several factors behind this, but there's also probably some factor we don't understand. It could be some chemical in the water, it could be something which we don't understand. Mm-hmm. And it's clearly that of course, many couples, for economic reasons, don't want to have children, but that's one part of it. There's also many couples that want to have children and cannot have children.
Okay, well, let's get back to the polar expedition. You spent quite a lot of money in that expedition. Well, was it worth it? And who convinced you actually to fund this expedition, Mr. Chilingarov? Was it Mr. Chilingarov himself? He's a convincing man, I know.
No, not really. I think this is something which had been in the background for a long time. You know, this institute, which belongs to the Russian Academy of Science, which has the two submersibles, has been working with foreigners for many years. For instance, they were used to dive on Bismarck. You've probably seen that in the film. And they were also used on diving at Titanic. And the combination of the Russian icebreakers and these submersibles became quite natural. So this was a project that has been on the back burner for 6-7 years. Let's say the financing was the easy part. It was the planning and getting all the permissions, which were the difficult part, and that's where my friend Arthur Chilingarov came in, and without him this would not have been possible. I think the monies are not really that important in all of this.
But this was by no means, this wasn't like a tourist trip, even if we compare it to the commercial space flights. It was pretty different. You weren't a tourist. Why did you...
Actually, the planning we did in advance. Some of our scientists calculated the chance of coming up again at around 50%.
So why did you decide to take part in the expedition yourself and go down after you had this calculation?
Well, I think it's partly the excitement. It's an adventure. We're doing several things at once. You're part of this great scientific exploration, and sitting in the chair at home looking at a video 2 months later, that's not really what I want to do. I want really to be hands-on and be in on it.
So it's the adrenaline?
Yeah, partly.
What else do you do for adrenaline? Do you do skydive or mountain ski or what?
No, but this expedition is only one out of 4 polar expeditions I've done this year. So we're continuing doing another one now in at the end of December, beginning of January. We're flying with some Russian friends down to Antarctica, and we're going to a place called the Pole of Inaccessibility, which was discovered exactly 50 years ago in January by Russians. They were the first who went there, and we will go there and celebrate this 50 years jubilee.
But you just said that the chance of getting back from the seabed was 50%, and you had 2 crafts. crafts. So you managed to lift both crafts.
Well, it was very close in the end.
But the chance was that one of them should stay there, according to the statistics.
Yes,
so you've done the impossible, or what?
No, but it almost happened also. The first submersible with Artur and his team, the Russian team, the ones who planted the flag and were the first down there, they came up pretty smoothly. When we went up, we lost contact and started drifting, so we were without contact with the ship to go up through the ice.
Why?
Because you have to imagine you have about 700 kilometers of ice in all directions. And the ice is about 2-3 meters thick.
So it would have been impossible for your craft to find the hole in the ice.
We only had a little hole of about 15 times 40 meters, which we had to find. And without the help of the navigation systems from the ship, it would have been impossible.
Did they discover later what was the problem? Why did you lose contact?
No, it's rather complicated navigation systems consisting of 4 transponders, which are being laid out around the ship. And you have to catch the signals going out from them at the same time to be able to coordinate. And we didn't catch these signals until absolutely the last second.
Was it scary?
Let's say dramatic is a better word.
So scary was later, when you think about it, yeah? That's what usually happens. But you also faced some problems getting to the North Pole, because you were not on the icebreaker, you were on the second ship. Was that true? Was something wrong with the propeller or something? Was that?
No, that was one of the ships in the beginning. It had some engine problem, but that was solved very easily. Arthur took a helicopter, flew over there, and commanded very strongly to have some spare parts flown over from Murmansk. It was fixed within 24 hours.
Says Fredrik Paulsen, an ordinary polar explorer of Russia who took part in the Arctic 2007 expedition. Spotlight will be back shortly after a break, so stay with us and don't go away.
The Ukok Plateau in Siberia's Altai mountain range. A sacred place where nomad souls live on after death. And the site of a sensational archaeological find. A 2,500-year-old mummy of a woman was discovered here, perfectly preserved. The unknown Ukok in our series Meeting with Nature on RT.
To Spotlight, I'm Al Gurinov, and just a reminder that our guest today is Fredrik Paulsen, an honorary polar explorer of Russia who took part in the Arctic 2007 expedition. Mr. Paulsen, you just told us about the difficulties and the real dangers that were there when you went down to the seabed, like more than 4,000 meters below the surface of the ocean. Well, tell us about your impressions. What did you see when you were there down on the seabed? Was it like something unforgettable, or could you see anything at all, actually?
Well, first of all, usually when you go down with the submersibles, you see quite a lot of things, because you have the sunlight going through the water, but here you have to imagine that the water is covered by ice. So you go down, already after 5-10 meters is complete darkness. You don't see anything at all. The only thing you have a small hole, a window which you can look out of, and then of course you have switch lights which you can switch on, but you don't want to use them too much because they use too much of the energy. So we went down in complete darkness for about 2.5 hours and didn't see anything, and then it's not until we came down to the bottom we switched on the lights, and then you have this sandy grey bottom. It's quite impressive. And we had been told that there would be no living creatures there, but we actually saw some fish, completely transparent white fish. You can actually see the whole bones inside the fish. And then there were some crustaceans also moving around on the bottom. And we collected some samples on them.
Were those fish, were they large or small?
No, small, like that.
Like small
5
fish. You can
centimeters.
imagine how different these fish are from what we have.
Yes, exactly.
Because they live like with 4 kilometers of water
on top of them.
Pressure on top of them. Yeah, that's fantastic. Okay, and did you see the second craft? Were you far away from each other?
No, we were actually quite close, although the first craft came down to 4,200 meters. We came down to 4,302 meters. And so,
because it was uneven, and
yes,
the bottom was uneven.
And we found their traces because we could see where they'd been, and we tried to follow them also, but we didn't find them. They went up before us, about 1 hour before.
You said you found the traces, but so you want to say that these crafts, they have, the battlescaf, it has a possibility of moving.
Yes, we moved
on
about.
land. It has like wheels or something, caterpillars or what?
Yes, they're sort of, the propeller propels them on the bottom of the sea.
Is it soft? I mean, the bottom.
Yes, it's like sand.
So did you feel a touchdown?
Yes, it was a light bump. That was quite exciting.
Okay, well, how difficult was it physically? Because people who dive, they know that the process of going down and then going up is a very difficult thing. Inside a battlescaf, is it as difficult physically or not?
Well, you have to imagine that the inside is about just over 2 meters in diameter, and you have 3 grown-up men sitting in.
It's crowded.
That's a good term. And
like being stuck in an elevator.
And you have to have because the whole thing took about 8-9 hours, and you have to be concentrated the whole time, and that is really the strain on you. That you have to be aware of what's going on all the time and to perform whatever duties you have.
But generally, inside the craft, is it comfortable enough? I mean, to breathe,
No, it's quite uncomfortable.
Quite uncomfortable. Yeah. But you breathe normally, or you have some special devices?
No, we had, that's oxygen inside, so that's not...
So you didn't use any masks or special clothing or what? You just went down in blue jeans?
No, there's a special warm suit which you have to carry because it's quite cold in there.
Oh, it is cold?
Yeah.
Because keeping it warm, it needs energy.
Yes, and you know that, of course, the water around is -1, which sounds strange because then the water should have frozen, but it's so salty that it doesn't freeze. So you're surrounded by -1 liquid, which of course gives a very, very cold temperature inside.
And it's electrical. The craft it's electrical. I mean,
yes, all the powering is electrical.
All the powering is electrical. Okay, you said you saw the traces of this first battlescaf. They were the one, Chilungaru's craft was the one who planted the flag. Did you actually see this flag?
No, that's what we were looking for.
You want to see how it looks like? Okay, well, as I said in the beginning, there was a lot of disputes after this all happened and after you were successful around the world. People doubted the scientific importance of what you did, the scientific importance of the samples you took. Some people said you actually need to drill to have adequate samples. What you did, just scratch. I mean, some people say it was of no scientific importance. How would you comment?
First of all, I think the success of the expedition gave rise to, if you allow me to put it bluntly, envy. Many other countries who were not able to do this, because, let's face it, the Russians were the only one who could have done this. They were the only one who had the combination of battyscopes and nuclear submarines and the technical expertise to do it. And many other countries reacted very negatively. And I even got a clipping from a Finnish newspaper which claimed that the whole expedition was a hoax and that it had never really taken place at all.
It's like the Americans flying to the moon. Some people say it's a hoax too.
Yes, and to answer your question about the science, again, some of the newspaper comments you had afterwards gave the impression that this had been done very quickly and had been put together in a few months, and one had sailed out without having any clear project or plan. That's absolutely incorrect. The whole expedition was planned at least 7 years ago, and has special equipment was bought many years ago for the submersibles. So again, this was very well planned scientifically, and the scientific work which was done, well, first of all, if you allow me, I think it was a scientific feat in itself to perform the dive successful. But as to the samples which were taken, I think it's very easy. Let science decide. That we will have results from the analysis. We'll have studies being done on the animals we took with us. Let science decide for itself.
Okay, well, why I recall these articles saying about the scratching or drilling the seabed is that one of the outcomes that's discussed in the world is that the idea of this expedition for Russia was to claim the shelf as part of the Russian territory. And the people say that you really need to drill to prove that it is the continuation of the Russian territory, and like by scratching the seabed you can't prove nothing. Is it true?
Well, now we're already getting into arguments. And, as you know, there is a committee which has been constituted by the United Nations that will decide on this, and all the participants will bring their scientific evidence, and this committee will then decide. And I'm sure that the samples we took will contribute to showing whether or not this strengthens Russia's case.
But, well, Sweden, your own country, is not one of the Arctic countries. The countries are Canada, Norway, Denmark, and the United States, and Russia. What's your attitude at all to this idea of trying to claim parts of the Arctic and like rewrite the map? Because some comments were like planting the flag, the Russian flag, was incredible, because it's not the 15th century going around the world planting your flags and claiming territories. What would you say to that? Or you weren't very interested in the political aspect?
No, if you allow me, I think the Americans planted their flag on the moon.
Yeah, they did.
Does that mean that the moon is American? I don't think the Americans will claim that the moon is theirs. Every person that climbs a mountain puts his flag from his country. That doesn't mean that he says it's his. It's a symbolic gesture. And I don't think there is any Russian statement at all that this expedition was aimed at claiming the North Pole. That is something which has been construed by creative journalists.
Right, you are. That's what I said. It was all around the front pages, including the Russian papers, by the way. Okay, now let's talk about the hydrocarbons. It was also in the papers, and I think Mr. Chilingarov talked about it, that one of the reasons of this exploration, that this shelf, this part of the shelf, can be rich of hydrocarbons. Is that true?
Well, I think it's a scientific fact that 20% of the world's hydrocarbons are in this area, and that's why, to answer your previous question, this has to be regulated. You cannot have everybody going there and sort of starting drilling at their pleasure. I mean, it has to be determined what belongs to whom. That will be done, and within the next 6-7 years that will be established.
But do you think that it will be possible in the foreseeable future to drill for oil at the depth of 4 or 5 kilometers?
No, not yet, but that everything is possible with it. Who would have believed that you could have taken out so much oil as you do today from the northern part of the sea north of Norway? That was unthinkable just 20 years ago.
And another thing I want to ask you about that visit to the French polar expedition. I know that while on the North Pole, you visited the French who were drifting with the ice.
Yes.
Tell us about it.
The European Union has a scientific program to measure the changes in the Arctic, and it goes under the name of Damocles, which I think is probably not very well chosen. And the idea is that they have put a specially built ship on the ice, and it was put on the ice, I think must have been about a year ago, just north of Tiksi. And this...
And we spent 2 years there.
We spent 2 years on it, 2 winters, and I visited them twice already, and I've been supporting this program also a little, and it's quite exciting what they're doing there, because there you will basically do what Fram did, where you will get the boat on the ice, you will float and drift over, and they're about, so the scientists go in and out, but the crew and the captain, who is from New Zealand, will stay there for 2 years the whole time without leaving the boat.
Thank you very much, and just a reminder that our guest today was Mr. Fredrik Paulsen, an honorary polar explorer of Russia, who took part in the Arctic 2007 expedition. And that's it for now from all of us here. If you want to have your say on Spotlight, or have someone in mind who you think I should interview next time, please drop me a line at algorinov@rttv.ru, and let's keep Spotlight interactive. We'll be back tomorrow with more first-hand comments on what's going on in and outside Russia. Until then, stay on Russia Today, and take care.